Hi, I'm Corinne Hogan and I'm the assistant librarian here at the college. I've been working at the college for about 18 years, so quite a long time. And I work both on the modern and the heritage side of the collections, and also kind of in the delivery of our public engagement activities. I also manage the college Instagram account, the library one, and that gives you a kind of flavour of our collections and a dose of medical history every day. So what we have here is the Diary of a Resurrectionist, and it's almost a unique document in that it is a record of a gang member from a sort of a resurrection group. So these were the body-snatchers, as they're also known, the sack-em-up men. And it's an account basically of what they were doing every night, how they were faring in terms of snatching bodies, and also the sales side of it, who they sold them to, where they went, and sometimes their activities after they finished the day's work as well. So it talks about going to the pub and who's been arrested, all this kind of really unique data that we don't have really, as far as I'm aware. We don't have any other accounts like this. That it's almost like a kind of like a sort of staff manual almost of what a body snatcher would be doing. And it's just so incredible to have this still. It covers the period 1811 to 1812. And within that time, there's quite a lot of going to different graveyards. The group were called the Borough Group, and they were sort of based really around Southwark, but they would go all over London looking for private burial grounds as well as kind of churchyards, obviously, and then selling those bodies to anatomists. And the reason that there is this need is that the college and the kind of official schools and the private medical schools had a need for bodies that they were going to dissect for medical education. Now, obviously, this was quite difficult to supply these bodies, and there was a component of surgical education that required anatomy teaching. And in terms of what the college were entitled to, as far as the law is concerned, that was 4 bodies per year, which were the bodies of executed criminals. So those would be taken to the college and then distributed around the medical schools. And clearly this need for an anatomical teaching just meant that more bodies were needed, unfortunately. And the easiest way to obtain those were to raid churchyards, charnel houses, private graveyards. And it became sort of, in politics, there's sort of strange bedfellows in the surgical profession. It was the same in medical education. There was this need. I mean, who would want a surgeon who hasn't actually explored anatomy working on them? They wouldn't. So this just became a real concern for surgeons. There's evidence that surgeons were writing to the president saying, this is a real problem, that we need these bodies, but that there's such a public disgust at the idea of them being taken from the graves of your family and your friends. So there was that tension. And it's important to say as well that these are body snatchers rather than burkers. So they weren't murdering the people. They were just kind of supplying a need. And it was something that there were competing gangs around London who would also be doing the same activities. There were problems in Edinburgh as well, obviously, with Burke and Hare. And those kind of high-profile cases meant that this whole issue of anatomy teaching became really live and was debated. And there was a committee that collected a lot of evidence as far as body snatching goes. And they decided that the best way to address this problem and stop this criminality around it was to start to grant bodies that had not been claimed from hospitals, workhouses, and basically bodies that were not going to be buried or were not going to be visited by family. So it disproportionately affected poor people, unfortunately, this new wave. But it did stop the criminality in its tracks.